In the last video help, we covered the main menu or app map, and then we covered the calendar itself. The way you can dismiss these items that are in popovers is to just click anywhere off the screen, or at the very bottom you can click any area. For example, it'll take you to that particular thing that you want to see. For example, if I want to go back to the calendar, I can go back by just clicking on the calendar. So you navigate through the application. Let's talk a little bit before we go into actually doing tasks, events, and appointments, where the concept of this application differs from the other equipment apps that are out on the OnTargetSolutions.biz website. Each one of these, including the Service app, has specific things that can be custom designed. And in this particular case, the Equipment Services app is more about service and management of the items that are in the field. More or less, the service in this particular case is the primary reason for this application, where you're managing each piece of equipment that you manage and in your pool, whether they're in the pool at your local area or they're being dispersed out to other customers or job sites where you're actually using them. You have to be able to track those pieces of equipment, where they're at, what condition they're in, if they're coming up on an event where they have a planned service, which is called scheduled, or if there's a call that comes in and saying that they need unscheduled maintenance where there's an issue and it's not operating correctly, you would have to go out and do service. Well, all of those things are covered, including contacting a client, delivering an item, dispatching them out, having the manager manage the overall thing where he has access to all the individuals. As he logs in, he can see everything that's going on. But each individual calendar is unique in that they carry those things, for example, like moving a piece of equipment from one site to another, picking it up and bringing it back to a certain location, or the service itself, where you're actually doing service either on site or you're bringing it back to the main pool to do service on it and replacing it. So those are the kind of things that this application would do. It also manages the contact information as far as the individual contact is concerned. So customer information, customer listing, and the booking for, and I'll talk about UDFs later on, and a listing to show notes and information about them, customer status, and so forth. All this stuff is really the first place that you're going to start on. One of the things you need to keep in mind is that if you're going to add a new customer, that you're going to have to go to the customer screen itself and add that customer before you can actually do some kind of an event that's related to them. So what you're looking at is keeping a ongoing and up-to-date version of all of the different customers that you're working with, so that you can work with them as far as the service and distribution of equipment. So let's go ahead and go to the first thing that we're going to be doing, which is to click on the Daily Appointment Plus where it says New. And what it's going to do, it's going to bring up a new screen, and I'm going to bring that up here. You'll notice at the top that this is a new and blank appointment. So there is actually 3 different screens that have to do with appointments. There's New, View, and Edit. The Edit Appointment screen is the most common one you'll see, because it's when you create a new one, it's going to go back in and show you the Edit screen. So you'll see Edit Appointment at the top of the screen. On the first screen, this repeat every so many days, that can be used, but it actually is really not going to work so well as far as the application is concerned, because we've covered all those different kind of requirements in the design of this application. In addition to that, you'll notice that there is additional information at the bottom of the screen, and there's also a pop-up at the top for a popover, which we're going to cover those. Now, when you're using this application, we're going to consider in this particular case that you have already created a customer if you needed to. And the way you can verify that is, if they're available without even having to go to the customer screen, is there's customer records at the very top of the screen. So if I click on this, it's going to bring up all the different customers that are available in this application. Now, I have a lot of sample ones in here. And what happens, you can actually scroll through these, and they're in alphabetical order. So by the first character in there. So for example, I got an empty record or 2 in here just for samples to show when we go back in the back of the record how to get rid of them as far as empties are concerned. But you'll see in this case J, and then the next alphabet K, and so forth. So you can scroll through, and say, for example, it's Larry Kuntz is the guy we want to actually add. Uh, if he's already in here, you don't need to add him again. And there's another way to find that out. By the way, you can actually edit within this screen and change things. Like if you added a zip code or needed to, you could add it. If you needed to add their email or do something along those lines, you could do that by just clicking in, finding the person that you want to edit, and then add that information. To exit this screen and go back to using the other part of the application, you click and it dismisses it. The first thing we're going to do to add an appointment is we're going to put in what this is going to be, and we're going to call it by the event that it is, a delivery. And then we're going to put a colon. In this particular case, we're going to pick a person, and we're going to say Brent Doherty is where we're going to go to. And you go, oh, well, where does Brent's company be? Well, click it again, and you'll see that Brent is it's called Install Retail. So we're going to go over and put in Install Retail, and that's the company or location that this is going to, where it's going to be finally going to. It defaults to the current date on the calendar. After the delivery, you can say to work site. Let's say Trail Beach. And by this, we're just making this up. Just basically, we're giving it a work site and the location of where it's at. The next thing we want to do is we want to drop down here and put in what this is going to be. For example, is it a contact issue, a delivery, which we're going to be using? Each one of these is going to put this onto the calendar so that you can actually tell by looking at it where it needs to go. It could be a pending reservation, a pickup, a rental, a replacement, a reservation, a status, schedule, or service. Now, I'm going to put in delivery, and you can see that it puts this little clipboard icon. It has either a low routine or a high priority as far as getting this task done. The next thing we want to do, because it is a deliverable, we want to put it on the delivery calendar. So it's a dead giveaway under this regime. If you look at it, it says delivery, that it needs to have a matching indication on the calendar by putting a checkbox in there. If I had logged in as the manager, this would have already been checked because I logged in as the manager. But if it's not, I'm going to go ahead and put it to the manager so that it shows up on his screen as well for all activities, for the manager to see everything that's going on, where the delivery calendar would be only the deliveries on that calendar. So if you're the guy that's responsible for making deliveries, or you're the dispatcher, you'd want to have that on there. Now, one of the other things you may want to do, just because this is a delivery, if your business is set up where you actually have a dispatcher that needs to know a delivery is required, put a check mark in dispatch so that they also know what's going on as far as that's concerned. That way you have 3 additional ones that we've added on this screen. Now you can see there's quite a space to put a lot of different things in here if you needed mini calendars. The next thing we're going to do, if this is a delivery and it's on a one-day basis, what we're going to do is go ahead and put in the time that it's supposed to be delivered, and that would be important because you want people to be able to find or to be able to get to the location where it belongs. So we're going to put in 9 a.m. and this should be done by 11 a.m. So we're going to put in 11 a.m. That is the closing time for this particular task. So it must be quite a distance for a couple hours to get over there, drop it, and go on to the next event. Now, obviously, it's a delivery. You can have multiple devices on, or a piece of equipment on a trailer or a truck or whatever. So you could put additional things throughout the day for the delivery of these particular things. It may require an individual appointment for each one of these, or it could be all to one location, for example. So maybe it would take that particular time to do that. The next thing we're going to look at is if you're putting in a date span and a date time span, if you make this a different day period where you actually drop the calendar down and put it like on the 10th, what it's going to do, it's going to make this not show up anymore on the calendar of events. The reason for that is that this spans over a couple of days, and it will drop the times, but the times are still in here and they're still important as far as what's going on. Let's put it back to the 9th for this particular event so we can see it on the calendar. The information for down here at the bottom of the screen is very important. The first thing is you can assign a piece of equipment to this particular event But the best thing to do first is to see if the equipment is actually available. So you have an equipment assignment and an equipment availability status. Say, for example, we needed to send a forklift to this particular location. We would scroll through here and find the forklifts. Well, this particular sample data that we have in here is from a different client where we were using his data, and he had a lot of different kinds of computer and other kind of devices that he's using as managing equipment. So he also has some diesel powered generators and stuff like that. So we see all of the items, inclusively all equipment in the equipment ID and the ID for the individual piece of equipment. In this case, he's putting a lead character, so they group by that particular character. And this is really an important thing to do. For example, if these were forklifts and I put an F dash and then I put the serial number of it, then it would be easier for me to find the item based on the F for forklifts. If it were a truck and it was T, then it would be T dash whatever. So it's very important to have those identifiable. In this case, some of the things he did, he has some valves that are separate items, and they should still have a numeric number. If they don't have a serial number, you can assign something like 001, 02, and so forth to differentiate the different valves. It really depends on your kind of a business, and as the developer, I can assist you in figuring out how to set up these things. In this case, he put in his serial numbers of all the larger items, and he listed the equipment status through a drop down, and you can see the different kinds of things that he has, and then the equipment type. Now, a lot of this can be customized to fit your specific needs, so it's not in concrete how these are added in here. It's really up to you. The next thing you'll notice is as I click into some fields, they're not editable because they should be edited in the back end of the application. So we do not allow those to be done in this screen. And then there's a one that is this one at the end of the line that's called Notes, and that needs to be added in this screen or changed as you do things. The whole idea here is to first identify the equipment that needs to be, or it needs to be available like it says in stock, or it could be available or whatever as far as the status, and these can be changed to fit your needs. Then the equipment assignment itself would be done on the back end of the application. You can change the status here, but you need to be able to go in and identify the individual in the back end of the application and edit those fields. As you can see, it only is editable where you have those one or two fields that have the drop downs in them. How do you do the edits on those? You would go to the back to the main screen, and let's go ahead and do that. Before I do that, let me add one more thing. There is a to-do here. If there's specific notes or messages that you want to give to anybody in the group as you're doing this, you can give the description, and then over here they can be added like status if it was done or completed. You would click this particular button right here and then add a note in here about different things that are occurring. If this is on the cloud, every time you add a note like delivery completed, no problems, it would show up so everybody in the company could see that that task was completed. And another thing that goes on, because this is a new task that we're adding here, you don't complete it in this screen. You would go back to the main calendar, and you can see that it did add the information into the calendar. You can see it was added by admin. It's got a sequential number on it, shows the priority. It shows the date and time. It shows the kind of thing, an icon. It's a delivery. It shows the information as far as delivery and where it's going. And say, for example, we completed this activity. The next thing we would do is click in here, and it would draw a line through this item showing it complete. If it were not done on the same day that it was supposed to be, then this information would be reverted over to expired appointments, and that information now would indicate that this was not completed when it was supposed to be done. Okay. Now, as you come down here, I'll click off this and show you that you can leave that particular calendar date by clicking a different date. And you can see that the 9 has an underline on it, indicating that there is an appointment for that calendar for that date. Now, as you move between calendars, like if I go from administrator to dispatch, where we had the same thing on the calendar, you'll see that it's on here and it carries the appointment information over to the dispatch calendar. Let's go ahead and go to something like default user, and you'll see that it disappears to indicate that these are individual calendars and the information was assigned to that particular calendar and not everybody in the group. And as you look at the calendar, you can see that there's no underline under the 9. So that is obviously put in there to indicate that there was a task on that area on that date. You can show the completeds or not show them. In this particular case, I would always leave this check to show occupied dates, and if it is completed, to make sure that the completes are shown and that the information is completed. Before we leave this particular tutorial, let's go up and show that there is the week calendar. And in the week calendar, it actually indicates all the activities for that date, and it also does the dailies down here on the week calendar. So you would see, obviously, this is Thursday, and you'd see all the rest of the items that were done for this particular week showing up. Then you can cycle to the next calendar for the week by clicking on the next button to see what's coming up in the next week for this particular calendar. And as you can see down here in the bottom, there's also the ability to go in and click on this to show you or edit the screen. And I'm only going to pop it up for 1 second just to show you that it does show the edit appointment now. And the edit appointment screen has the information that you had for that particular appointment. Yet it's still editable on this screen. You would not have a new edit or a new appointment coming up. The one additional thing you'll see in this screen, it does have the completed button checked, and there is a delete in here. And I want to point out and emphasize that it is not a good idea to delete calendar events unless there's an error in it and you're going to cancel it and take it out. If you cancel it in one calendar, for everybody else that is in check mark, it will also remove it from their calendars. This runs as a history of all the items that are being done, so that when you look back at the main calendar on whatever period of time it is, you can see those events and when they occurred and if they were completed or not. So it's not a good idea to delete the items. This little red checkbox here will also delete the daily item, but like I said before, it's not a good idea to remove any event unless there's an error in it and it needs to be removed. So it does give you the ability to click on it and remove that information. If you have more questions about how to use this screen or use the appointment screen, you can contact me through ontargetsolutions.biz and go to the FAQs and ask a question through the question block that's on the right side of the screen. One last thing before I leave the screen, you can add new records in the week by clicking on the plus, or you can go to the actual date by clicking on the date calendar to go to that date from there. It's like this one where if you click on it, it changes the date. It works in the same manner. If you have any questions, please contact me through the main site. Thank you.